Good evening, everybody. Welcome again to our webinar club Zoom meeting. With a bit of luck, we might only have one more of these to go, but tonight we're going to have Brett Dyson provide us with some discussion and possibly some questions from the floor. Angela DeLallo is going to do a presentation, and we have a Tassie video from Steve McAdam. But just to move ourselves along and then where we're at with the COVID-19 situation, as of Sunday night coming, we have another upgrade of the restrictions. And so this weekend, subject to us getting a COVID-19 plan across the line before the end of the week, the YARC committee can go back there and start cleaning up and getting it ready for us to start the DA weekend going forward. Until such time as we get a clearance from the government to open up ad hoc, that's all that will be happening at YARC in the very short future. And that decision will be made at the end of July. But at this point in time, we're opening up YARC for the DA crew to start training people and allowing a limited group of the YARC maintenance crew to get there and clean up and sanitise the place and so forth. But moving right along, I don't have a lot to talk about tonight other than just that. So going to the next item on the agenda is the previous minutes. So I'm assuming if anybody's got anything to say about the previous minutes, write in to us and we'll sort that out. We have a guest speaker tonight, which is Brett Dyson. Brett's a long-standing member of our club and has been our technical officer for many, many years and provides us with great knowledge in terms of technical capability of our vehicles and the like. So he's about to talk about DPF and other four-wheel drive issues. So we welcome Brett along, and if I pop up questions through the Q&A, you're most welcome, and we'll try and answer them tonight. Thanks. Over to you, Brett.
I've had an interesting week. I had a bit of a seating issue in my old 70 Series Landcruiser. If you can imagine sitting on the flat part of the driver's seat, it's kind of a cup. And on the left-hand side, you've got a padded bollard, and on the right-hand side, you've got another padded bollard. The angles are different between the two. So the angle on the left-hand side of the driver's seat on 70 Series is about, 5-7 degrees. And the bollard on the opposite side is about 2 or 3 degrees. And what was happening is, as the vehicle had aged, the springs underneath the seat had sagged a little bit. And the result was that it had put pressure on the left-hand bollard, where it ran down past hip socket, sciatic nerve, blood feed, arterial feed, and cut it all off. Now, I was blissfully unaware of this, happily driving my Landcruiser down to a local town to, do what you do when you go driving your Landcruiser down to local towns. I didn't notice anything, got home, so it was probably roughly an hour in each direction, and collapsed. Couldn't stand, couldn't walk for 2 days. Scratched my head in confusion and what's going on. So I start researching this, talking to a few different people, and it's actually surprisingly common. Sciatic injury, lumbar injuries from poor seating ergonomics, and progressive decline over time that we may not even be aware of. Now, my simple observation as regard this is not just that obvious discomfort of staggering around the place, but I mean, imagine if you got a week out into a trip, or two or 3 days out into a trip, and suddenly you're so completely incapacitated that you can't enjoy the trip, you can't drive your car, it's incredibly unpleasant. So anyway, did some exploration, pulled the seat out of the car, pulled the seat apart, pulled the cushion off the seat, disassembled the cushion, the upholstery, the frame that the seat's built into, and started looking at what I thought it might have been when it was new versus what it is now. And I reckon it's probably dropped about an inch, maybe 20 mil. So to compensate for that, I built up a padding system between the lower sprung pillow, if you like, and the bottom frame where it's actually supported. And in effect, I turned that into that. And what it's done is lifted my whole body up by, maybe 20 mil. And lifted the blood vessel and the nerve away from the bollard. It's a short-term fix, but it's a cheap one. I think it cost me about $4 and a few hours in time. But it's an interesting observation. And I guess that there's a lot of aftermarket seating sold out there, and some of it's really, really good. But if you drive a higher four-wheel drive like I do, you'll notice that a lot of the driver's seats have got on the door side, they're sort of shaped. You've got a flat seat, and then there's this hook that kind of holds you in there. The problem is getting in and out over that hook of most of these aftermarket seats just don't work. So what else can you do? Well, there's a litany of YouTube videos exploring the joys of Ford, in particular Ford XR6 seats, but also Holden Commodore SS seats and Volvo seats. Now, that's exciting. I was tempted, but I didn't go there. But they were heated, vibrating, probably had position for roll mops and a few other things that would be of delight. But yeah, very, very interesting option. If you actually have a look at the Landcruiser, particularly the 70 series seats and the Hilux seats as well, they're not actually even. They piff your body off on a slight angle anyway. So, I'm sort of wondering, I don't know, I mean, maybe I'm just a little more aged than I'd like to be, but I do know that if my body's not held correctly in the seat in a healthy ergonomic position, there's going to be consequences. It's going to add to fatigue, observation. You're going to miss things because you're in discomfort, and I think it's actually a really, really important thing. And I wonder if anybody else has had issues with that, and whether or not anybody else has had solutions, and what they might have looked like for them. But yeah, that was my week. Very exciting. Anyway, do we have any questions?
I had an issue for many, many years where the muscle in the back of my neck across the shoulder there used to, I suppose, cramp while you're driving, particularly if you're driving in straight, long distances without any corners or hills and so forth to go on. And it's quite debilitating. And I did some research, and I found the Australian Institute of Sport have done similar research, and what happens is your spine curves ever so mildly, but it mostly came from men sitting on their wallet, and which I found quite strange.
Yeah, I'm just not that fat.
Yeah,
not.
And anyway, I've since then removed my wallet from my back pocket, put it in my front pocket. I'm talking 5 or 6 years now, and I just don't have that problem anymore.
Well, perhaps you've dropped the wads of cash for the platinum credit card, and it's less of an issue.
Well, taking all the bills and letters out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I mean, look, it got to a point where I was actually afraid to drive the car. Now, I know that sounds really stupid, but 30 minutes in the car and I'd be incapacitated for 24, 36 hours.
Wow.
It's crazy stuff. And I just thought, oh, this is nuts. So I started exploring it. Got to be somebody. I hope it helps somebody.
Well, the thing is,
thinking about their own sense of discomfort.
I guess the thing is there, that example of the wallet being in the back pocket, if your seat is somewhat skewed in a way and not supporting your body equally, and therefore your spine is not perpendicular to the seat, it will create that curvature in the spine. And as I say, it was very, very minimal. I saw the research had x-rays and so forth, and it showed a slight bend at the base of the spine, and also it brought on board sciatica as well. So that's
it's pretty common.
Yeah,
it's pretty common.
So that comes down to the seat you're sitting on.
Well, I mean, there's not much fun plodding around a rough track with extreme discomfort, and it was getting that way for me. That sort of got me thinking. I mean, until you actually experience this stuff personally, it's pretty hard to kind of give it any legitimacy in the communication that you have with others. You go, oh yeah, I understand, but no, you don't understand. So
there's a comment
here. Interesting observation.
Yeah, there's a comment here from Jeanette Bennett stating that if you tilt the seat forward can sometimes help as well. So I guess it all comes down to getting your posture right on the seat.
It's a really interesting investigation into this has been done by some of the American guys who do interiors for Chevrolet and some of the American manufacturers. where they sort of looked at an independent solution. And one of the reasons why they've gone like 6 and 8 way individual adjustable seats is that everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's got their limitations. So some people benefit from the front of the seat being a little bit lower to the ground and the back of the seat being higher. Others benefit from the reverse being true. So the point of having all this adjustability is to try and find your comfortable position. But yeah, everybody's different. Everybody. And that was the thing that kept coming up in this information that had been, or this study that had been done on it, online at least, was the infinite variation of the human body in relation to automotive seats. So, but I'm told, I have it on great assurance, that Volvo's X60 and X70 are the finest seats in the business. They probably weigh about 4,000 kilos each. So I don't know whether they're going to slot into the Landcruiser footprint, but the Ford and the SS Commodore ones are both significantly wider, but they're not deeper. So if you're driving a single cab or a dual cab where you've got very, very limited room in the back of the car, the XR6 seat and the SS Commodore seat will go in on top of that existing footprint. There is an adapter plate that you can buy. It's not particularly expensive, a couple of $100. And compared to a top of the line or a Caro, which is going to set you back a couple of grand, more than likely, you might be able to fish around a wrecking yard and find a decent seat and go forth and be comfortable. Anyway,
there's a
question.
Yeah, it's a question there from Michael Martin. There was one previously from Julian Brede about having the heater on in the seat. I couldn't answer that. You might be able to, Brett.
What was the question?
Does the heater in the seat create a problem? I would have thought it'd be your posture that's the issue, not so much whether the heater is on or off.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it comes down to individuality and external temperatures. I mean, if the outside temperature is below -15, as it is in a lot of places in Northern Europe, or -20 or more, getting into a nice, comfortable, warm chair would be delightful, I would imagine. As for us, it doesn't really affect us anywhere near as much. In fact, an air-conditioned seat would probably be a nice touch here. But no, strokes for folks. I don't know the answer to that question. It's a good one, though.
I guess getting out into the cold might be an issue for you, but then again, I think the whole issue of is about the posture in the seat rather than. Now, Michael Martin's got a question on thoughts of improving transmitting cooling capabilities on a 200 series autos, as an aside for which there is no service prescribed service interval. I'm not sure what that means, but.
Yep, I know exactly what he's talking about. Yeah, okay. He's quite right. The hydraulic unit, an automatic transmission is basically a switched and valved hydraulic unit, and their estimation is that it won't require fluid exchange in the lifetime of the vehicle. Well, that's probably speculative, and I'm not sure I'd like to go down that road. I think, doing a fluid change at 100,000 kilometres should probably be part of a major service, frankly. As far as external cooling opportunities are concerned, there are any number of transmission cooling devices available on the market. And I guess it's just a question of plumbing one in, but certainly you're not going to wander into your local Repco and snap one up. You'll have to build it. And then you've got to take into consideration what the operating temperatures of the automatic transmission unit would be as a standard operating temperature, whatever that might be. Let's say it's 100 degrees for the sake of conjecture. It's not, but let's just guess at that. And if the median is to get up to 100 degrees and stay there for the fluid to have the correct hydroelastic function, and for the solenoids and the fuel gauges and everything else, all the calibrations inside that device, allowing that lubricant to flow. If it's then running at say 25C or 30C, how will that affect the viscosity of the oil, and in turn, how might that affect the performance of the automatic transmission? How might that impact on the solenoid switching and the valving and all the rest of that stuff? We don't know. So there's issues around it. and it's a complex science. Hydrostatic transmission, automatic transmissions, are a complex animal, and there are far greater specialists out there than certainly I will ever speculate. And I'd strongly suggest perhaps talking to somebody who's working at the more extreme end of automatic transmission engineering and explore those options. If they come back to you and say, look, there is an issue with these things overheating, then how do you control that? Do you put a temperature-related thermostat in an oil line or an oil cooler? Do you at some point, okay, it gets to this temperature and then some valve opens and the oil tootles off into a radiator somewhere and cools down? I mean, it's speculative and very complex to integrate into existing automotive systems without necessarily impacting any warranty or operational parameters going forward. It's complex.
Yeah.
Good question, though. Cool.
Yeah.
Great question.
You might want to call Brett individually, Michael, and get down to tours on that one. But we've got another question from Corinne Pepping. Wants to know if you can explain DPFs in basic terms. She says, I don't have one in the V6, but I keep reading about all the problems in the current crop of diesels.
Okay.
Chris Treble says his wallet in the back pocket, he had the same problem 10 years ago, it has now been fixed. So
how did he fix it? How did he fix it? Just remove the wallet, or
removed it. Oh, well, remove the wallet, I imagine.
Great solution. Okay, so as far as DPS is concerned, essentially the function of the DPS is to capture excess soot and particulate matter prior to it being ejected from the exhaust system. And in that collection function, at a certain point in time, have a fifth or sixth injected or a ninth injected, depending on what sort of vehicle you're driving, which then pumps a bit of fuel into the DPF with the purpose of combusting those soot particles into either finer soot particles or into no particle at all, assuming that it's unburnt fuel and all that sort of stuff. That's the point of the DPF. It basically cleans up the exhaust matter coming out of the vehicle by combusting it. There are a number of organisations in this country that are manufacturing aftermarket components that occupy the footprint of the DPF in the vehicle and eliminate the DPF entire. They also eliminate the fifth or ninth injector from that system. They add 10-15% horsepower pretty much immediately, and 15% plus depending on what stage you are in your cycle. And when I talk about that, I talk about how the measurable resistance in the DPF filter is being detected and responded to by the onboard computer. So as the DPF accumulates debris, resistance to the pressure in those exhaust pipes increase, that measured. That's at the point at which the device decides to switch itself on and burn the particulate matter out. Now, depending on what stage you are in that cycle, either just after a burn or just before a burn, there can be a significant fuel saving. But the point is, you are going to pick up horsepower, you are going to pick up torque, and you are going to contravene ADR regulations. So maybe it's an off-road thing. Maybe it's something, a modification that's possible, but I'm not recommending it. I'm not advising for it. I'm not suggesting anything other than what the facts are. The ADR is a requirement, as I understand it, is punishable, and it's a fairly significant punishment. But there are solutions out there. Go on.
Well, Brian Stewart says that he's never had any issues in his 30-year-old troopy seat. So, mate, some of us are tougher than others.
That's a 75. That's a real one. It's a 75 series Landcruiser. It's not one of those newfangled push-button 79 things. I think he's still got pedals on his, hasn't he?
I'm not sure.
No. Perhaps he's just a far more robust character than I'll ever be.
Oh, well, if he's hung around with us for as long as he has to have some character going for him.
Survived with dignity and aplomb is our Brian.
Yeah, that's it, mate.
Anyway.
That's it. Okay, well, any other questions? There doesn't seem to be any more questions on there.
There's one from Sulan there, Eric.
Sorry?
There's one from Sulan you've missed under Chris's comment.
Oh, sorry, yeah. It's not a question, it's just a statement that car seats are not ergonomic because they deliberately make the seat angle less than 90 degrees to make it better for crash survival.
We also have Rob Duff saying, Brett, I adjusted the base of the seat at the rear by lifting it up with a couple washers under the base. Easy fix.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. It hasn't popped up here.
Yeah, I'm struggling to type as fast as Eric.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
These are on Facebook. I'm putting them on there for you, Eric.
Okay, thank you.
Ali Williams says can't beat Recaros. And Jan
what?
Ali Williams says can't beat Recaros.
Back to you, Brett.
And Jan Shivers says, Ken says Toyota seats were used to keep your bum off the floor. Go on you, Jan.
Oh, dear. Matt,
That's great. That's great.
Are we done?
Are we done? Anyone else? From?
There was a question from Janet Bennett.
Yep.
Asking about KDSS lean in a 2010 200 series. They tried the fix on the 200 project, but it didn't work.
All right, so let's break down the acronym. What's the KDSS?
I'm not sure on the 200 series. It hasn't got it on the 80.
KDSS lean.
It's a suspension system that it compensates for the lack of a live axle.
Kinetic dynamic suspension system.
Oh, was that Laurie?
Kinetic dynamic suspension system is KDSS.
Kinetic.
Sounds like one of those lovely electrically controlled hydraulic over systems that sort of punch the one side down when the other goes. The Land Rover experimented with some similar systems years ago, never got it right and ended up canning it and starting again. Hundreds of millions of dollars went into that engineering failure, and I guess Toyota's exploring its own options with that at the moment. Assuming that Toyota's version is electronically controlled, which I'd expect it to be, software programming could probably resolve a lot of this stuff. If you do have that kind of issue and you are dissatisfied with it, you do need to bring it to the attention of Toyota Australia through their dealer network. If you do not have any joy with them, then we need to talk, you and I, and we'll work out who we're going to talk to and how we're going to go forward with this. If it's unacceptable, if it's dangerous, if it's not what you purchased, then you have rights and warranties under law, and we'll pursue them with all vigour.
That's very important. We've done that before. You've done that before, Brett, and had quite some really good results. So at the end of the day,
very successful.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, if anybody's got any issues with the vehicle, that they're not getting any support from the dealerships, call Brett and talk to him about it, because the club does carry a fair bit of weight with Toyota. We are in extremely good. We have an extremely good relationship with their business development side of the organisation, and as well as the technical side. Sandra Tanner and Brian Tanner are constantly in contact with them and so forth to talk about future needs and requirements. And they're coming up to Yark to do some training once it's all open with their new vehicles and all the rest of it. So,
that will be fun.
Yes. If anybody has any issues, no matter how trivial, I do recall an issue with one of the members one time had cracking in I think, on the front guard, underneath the guard in a Prado. And none of the dealers wanted anything to do with it, and I believe you successfully sorted it out. Brett.
Well, I mean, the problem is that there's a lot of ignorance in the dealer network as to what their responsibilities are at law. And if something gets difficult and challenging, they'll run away because it's just too difficult for them to deal with. And the fact is, though, that there's this wonderful piece of legislation called the Merchantable Quality Act, Don't quote me on that being the name of the legislation, but something similar. And it basically goes to, would a reasonable person accept that this particular product that has been purchased in good faith fails within a reasonable period of time? And it applies to everything. I mean, it applies to televisions and motor vehicles equally. And it's a very, very powerful piece of legislation, far more powerful than small claims, far more powerful than any warranty. If you read your warranty in your motor vehicle, generally somewhere down in the last page, buried right down the bottom, there's this warranty does not exclude your rights and statutory obligations at law. And that's because they know that what they're doing is they're giving you a guide of what they're agreeing to in terms of supplying a vehicle. But their obligations at law, more often than not, greatly exceed what their stated agreements constitute. And it's a very important thing that you must understand your consumer rights, particularly when you're dumping hundreds of thousands of dollars into a vehicle. And I think breaks in half week 2. It's probably not suitable for purpose. But anyway, it's another issue, another story, another day.
Okay, we've got a couple of other questions here. Chris Treble says the 2016 79 series with the DPF arrangement, apparently those seats are much better and you don't need to replace. Okay, well, that's a comment. And the next item is from Jeanette Bennett, who says KDSS is hydraulic on their car rather than electric. I imagine that's what she's saying.
Okay, and exactly what's the nature of the... Well, perhaps that's something that we should discuss offline.
Yep.
And just have a bit of a conversation around that and explore. And the detail, you just shoot me an email at technical and I'll work it out from there.
Yeah, there you go, Janet. Give Brett a call and talk it out at length over the phone. So I don't have any more questions there. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time, mate. It's been very valuable, and I've always enjoyed your reports. No matter how deep and meaningful sometimes they can be, some of the technology is a bit over my head. But anyway, that's why
it's over everyone's head, mate. That's the whole point of technology.
Yeah, but it makes sense coming from you. That's the great thing. So over to you, Angela. Social now. So
okay. Well, for the first time in many months, we've got something to report. As you all know, we had to cancel the bush dance, which was supposed to be the end of May due to COVID-19. We'll be hopeful that we'll do another one at some point, but it's obviously too early to even start thinking about that because of the numbers, and an event like that would obviously be dependent on numbers to run. So with the committees, okay, we've organised a half a day at the Dingo Discovery Sanctuary in Toolern Vale on Thursday the 16th of July. We were going to do it late June, but we thought better to wait a couple of weeks. This is dingo pup season, so that should be quite a good day. We'll meet there at 11 a.m. for 11:30 tour. There'll be a 1.5 hour fully guided tour of this facility with a member of staff. You'll get the opportunity to meet and cuddle and photograph the 2020 Cubs. The facility, irrespective of COVID-19, has a strictly imposed limit of 20 persons. So we can't extend that above 20 persons. And that's about it.
Over to you, Viv Gardner, from the trip report and the Nissan Club video.
Hi everyone. Tonight I've got some very exciting news. We've got 4 trips listed and another one came through today for advertising. 3 of them are for the snow and 1 is a wake up and let's go on the 4th of July. James Clark has got 2 trips up, snow trips, and Duncan, who's a new trip leader, along with his assistants, David and Michelle, are going to run a Keen for Mount Skeen snow trip in August, and it's a family affair. hopefully with the restrictions starting to ease, we'll have more trip leaders willing to run trips in the coming months. So, and Eric's got a community response trip on the 20th and 21st of June that he'd love people to come and help. It's for a lady in need, and I'm sure the more hands make light work. Now we have a video that Laurie's put together of the TLCCV Nissan trip. Thanks, Laurie.
Nice.
Hopefully more trip leaders will be getting up and running some trips soon.
The activity I'm running this weekend, we've got a barbecue on for lunch. Helen and the property owner are organising a barbecue for those that come down to do a bit of work down there. Basically going to clean up a property. I tell you, this place is like, it's one of the most beautiful properties I've seen in the district. It's like a big amphitheatre in the middle of the bush. But her husband, who died just recently, was a real hoarder, and there's so much junk and stuff there, old cars and all sorts of old stuff that we've got to clean out and get her access to the house. She can't get access clearly to the house. There's so much stuff in the place. So in a nutshell, cleaning up a lot of stuff to go to the scrap metal dealers, piling a lot of old timber rubbish and so forth onto a bonfire and the like, and basically helping her out. Generally speaking, it's just a typical community effort to help someone who's on her own. But moving forward, that's this weekend. Hopefully it doesn't rain too much. So for those that are coming, be prepared for the worst. It is in the high country, and there it is. We are looking at getting the maintenance crew up to Yark as soon as possible, this weekend if possible, to start getting the place sanitised and the like. It shouldn't need a lot of cleaning up in the toilets and so forth because it's been sitting for so long. But generally speaking, the plan is to get it right for COVID compliance and so forth. So moving right along, the next person on the agenda is Liz Mills with education. Liz has got some ripper projects coming up, some of which I will be attending myself. So over to you, Liz.
Hi everybody, we're thinking very positively now and forging ahead with a few things. So yes, we have a few little things to mention to you tonight. Now, we had a bit of fun with the geocaching course, and about 15 members participated in that, so that was a bit of fun. And with that, I'd like to thank Matt Lilly very much for running the Zoom course in the background, so that's an enormous help to me. So firstly, we have the tyre repair course coming up on the 10th and 11th of October at Yark. So David and Duncan will be running that. It will be a cost of $15 for some of the equipment that you'll be using. Now, there are only 10 places available, so everybody who wants to go. And that means that if there's husband and wife, if the husband and wife both want to do it, you will both have to book in. We can't just book in one and have the other one turn up. So just be aware there are only 10 places. I think this is going to be a very popular course. And there's a good chance they will need to run another one later on, maybe next year. As Laurie has put up there, the course is now live on the website, so bookings are available at this stage, and it will be showing on the weekend wraps in the magazine shortly as well. You'll see on Facebook too, we've been looking for expressions of interest for a communication course. We don't have any dates or anything on that yet, but we will let you know. But it'd be interesting to find out from you all who will be interested to do that. Again, there probably will be a limit on participants, but we can always run another course later on. That will probably be in town, that one. So I'll let you know more about that in the coming weeks. And also to yesterday, I have been looking ahead and I have booked a first aid course. These are usually pretty popular as well. There'll be a few new members, no doubt, that will want to do that, and a few people who will be wanting to refresh their first aid. So we will be running that on the 20th and the 21st of February. Our usual lovely first aider, James Azam, will be running that again. Again, there will be advertisements to do with that coming up shortly and with all the details. So just keep an eye on the magazine and weekend wrap on that one. So there's a few other things that I have been looking at, but nothing positive as yet. Hopefully all these things obviously will run as per okay, depending on COVID-19. But obviously we'll give you plenty of notice if anything changes. So just at the moment, I think that's all, but just keep an eye on Facebook for anything new coming up, and hopefully we will actually get to see you at a proper club meeting before too long.
The next item on the agenda is the webmaster, Laurie Miles. Are you there, Laurie?
I'm there. And it's always exciting in the Webmasters Chair. There's always so much happening. This meeting's going very smoothly tonight, unlike the last couple. Facebook is a dream. It's streaming really well, and the guys are enjoying it over there. Trip leaders will be aware that I'm running a training course next week, which is for trip leaders to get a better handle on how the back end of our database works. We've got quite a few attending, and quite welcome to have a few more. We're looking for people who have run trips in the last few years and just need to upskill a bit more. The other thing I'm working on is I'm trying to finish my creation of web pages that show all our sub-communities and just give a bit of a spiel of who they are. Of course, the first one will be trip leaders, because I'm a trip leader, so we'll start with that one. It's nearly finished, and then I'll work on the other sub-committees so that when people look on our website, they can actually see who the people on our committees are and what their history in the club is. I think it's important to know who we are. So that's about it from the Webmaster this week.
Oh, well, thank you, Laurie. I suppose after 2 or 3 attempts, we're getting better at it. That's and then along the virus restrictions will release, and we will be using it much less frequently. I would like to see it being used more from the point of view of when we open up the club, when we're able to get back to Mulgrave and run the club meeting through Zoom. So those whether they're interstate or overseas or anywhere can log in and watch our club meeting pretty much live, if that's a possibility. So moving forward, we have Steve McAdam has got a video of Tasmania, a trip down in Tassie recently.
Check this out.
Yeah, I think so too. His tyres are full of mud. Yeah, that's
a bit more speed.
Yeah, a bit more. Yeah, a bit more wheaties, mate.
Yeah, like about 70.
3 litre.
Yeah, film it, Vic. Oh, he's got a lot more space. Yeah, got space. Keep coming. Oh, what a feeling! Toyota!
So much for Tasmania. Those that have been down there will understand that it's God's own country. Tasmania is just sensational. I've been down there quite a lot, and a couple of West Coast trips that I've run down there. One not so tough and one really tough, but certainly is an adventure. Well, if that's it, I'll call the meeting to an end, and thank you all for attending. Thank you, Angela and Brett Dyson, particularly on this particular night, coming on. Thank you all for attending. Thank you so much for our panellists for being on board, and hopefully we'll keep on going and get this meeting across all of our committee processes until such time as COVID's over. So thank you very much, and good night.